this meeting to order with appropriate notice has been, 5:30, excuse me, 5:30. Appropriate notice has been given. If you would all please stand and remove your hats for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I need an approval of the agenda, please.
I make a motion, we approve the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion from Scott, second from Jason. Any discussion? Barring none, all in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. We're here to speak about a facilities work session, and we are here with Josh Siebert from Modus Studio Incorporated doing our presentation.
Thank you.
Welcome, Josh.
Appreciate you having me back. Tonight I want to give you kind of a few-minute overview of what we kind of talked about previously, in case anybody had missed that. And then we'll kind of dive a little bit deeper into some options that came out of that first work session and just kind of talk about the pros and cons of those options. And then we'll kind of go down the road of, weighing out what we like about them and really looking, for me, the feedback I'm looking for tonight is kind of mulling it down to one option so that we can start to say, all right, let's work towards that option and figure out a layout, in particular, more of a plan layout that I would come back in the third session and show you how it starts to fit. So tonight, real quickly, I know most of you have seen some of this, but in case somebody was absent or hadn't, I'm going to just kind of real quickly show this a little bit. Of course, this is our campus from an aerial perspective. We've seen this before. You know it very well. Of course, you can kind of even see previously when we drone this, when this project was under construction. So I just try to take a time capsule view of what it had looked like in the past. We had dove a little bit deeper at that point and talked about the history of the campus. These are 6 snapshots of when different growth has happened on campus and roughly their time frames based on the records that we could find of when those additions were added to the campus. And so, in any kind of master plan effort, we try to think long term and start to ask ourselves why and when and how and what's next. So this starts to show that. Of course, this is the current configuration of the campus. Last time we started talking about real loosely at a 10,000 foot view of where potentially buildings could go, roughly where would things be impacted and what do we do with those things. These were just options of kind of roughly what we were starting to think about from a standpoint of what are the pros and cons, if you remember. During that working session, we dove a little bit deeper into what's currently in those facilities. One we call the Big Top or the Fine Arts Admin, the Performance Gym, and what are those criteria that are currently in there. What's currently in the Library and Media Center, what's currently in the Fine Arts and Admin. So those things we just kind of solidified what we knew. And then we started asking questions about what happens if you put a building in front or created kind of opening to the campus in some way. These were terms, if you recall, that came about from years ago, a few years ago when we sat down with the staff and faculty and asked, what did you want in a facility? These are the things that were both the teachers and somewhat, I think, a little bit of student feedback as far as priority terminology that came up. What does that mean? Well, natural light, outdoor connections, outdoor seating, conference room, common areas. So these terms were things that we were thinking about as we start to lay out the campus. We try to think about that. These are priorities of people that have vocalized and said, if we had a new building, we should be thinking about this, that, or the other. So I bring that back. This is the diagrams, if you recall, that we were live sketching over last time we met. These were kind of trying to solidify the boards, like just overall our conversations. And so I try to capture those and put them in a document where we had roughly 4 to 5 options that kind of were coming out organically through that conversation. Where's the new front? What's renovated? What's not? And so I won't dive too deep in this because the next exhibits kind of show that, a culmination of it. So, and then this was the finalized option D and some variants of that, of course. And these were just during that last meeting, of course. So that brings me to tonight. And so we have 4 options or schemes, options, we call them whatever works best, options of program. What we tried to do from last time to now is dive a little bit deeper in what you might need in your facility. The items on the right of the page start to show that. In this option, we chose just to look at what happens if a new building was to be kind of in the front of the campus. This building that is represented here is a 2-story building. So I want to preference that you see a little bit of a bubble diagram laid out, but this represents 2 floors. So to kind of go around the plan to help understand this option. The purple boxes represent the 30 classrooms that we will need in this new facility. When the existing big top, if you will, gets taken down, we will have 30 classrooms that we'll need to replace. That starts to lay out in some way like this. We will have to replace the cafeteria, as you know. The cafeteria is represented in this darker blue mass. The reason I had laid it out in this capacity was thinking about loading and unloading of that cafeteria. One of the fundamental challenges of any cafeteria is we have big trucks that will have to pull up a bread truck, a milk truck, deliveries in general. And so I located it more onto a side, if you will, so that we could still maintain as much parking as possible and then plug into that. At the same time, that cafeteria would be open to somewhat of a little bit of a green space to let natural light in. That natural light would be then demonstrated to the classrooms as well. The actual layout would be something like perhaps admin would be the first point of entry, of course. So thinking security, this option kind of consolidates your buildings on campus. It also locates what we have called a practice gymnasium that is currently under the existing big top. And I want to say that because we know that underneath that we have a facility that works for a lot of your different programs. And if we get rid of that, we've got to find a way that those students have that place. We thought it might make sense to locate them closer to the gym because, again, a lot of that program kind of goes back and forth, right? Students are practicing and then they're going into the gym, whether it's volleyball, ROTC, some of these different areas that are shared, kind of swing space, if you will. What I also did was in this green portion we talked about beforehand, potentially renovating that to some level. There's some restructuring that can happen in that building. That's where your current admin is going on. We know there's some classrooms there, but those things would have to move over to the new, and we would renovate to help make room for some of this square footage coming out of the circus tent. So with that said, this layout just starts to demonstrate maybe a new way of coming onto campus. There's some pros and cons. Pros being that it could maintain the current approach to the campus. You'd still come from the main street. You'd still have a front of the campus. It moves the admin to the first thing and point of contact. So again, we always think about what's our front door. You know, how do we welcome the public? How do we welcome students? It gives us easy access to the performance gym. So that gym in the future could be another front door, if you will. So we'll have to imagine how it feels to get rid of the old building and what happens to this new front, because I think there's some possibility there. And then it does give us a little bit of an easier loading dock access. So keeping that onto the perimeter of this one. And the activity gym near the performance. So we know that that's going to be important. Some cons, it would have to relocate kind of the traditional bomber plane. There's a loss of parking that happens with this option. There's some tight clearances between the existing buildings because we're going to have to work within that. You'll also notice one of the things that came out last time was a connection. So this little white bar, if you follow my cursor, this white bar connects it. So that was something that, hey, what happens if we have that performing arts center in the gymnasium? You know, how do we let a building kind of be that connector to keep the students inside? That could be a pro. At the same time, it does have some tight connections by making that work. And then it does have a little extra square footage based on that kind of circulation. So those are some kind of pros and cons of this option. May not be the one that we land on, it just happens to be one that we explored last time. And then this is just a three-dimensional massing so that everybody kind of understands the size of this facility. This looks like about 25,000 square foot of renovation potential and about 84,000 square foot of new construction. Depending on the practice facility, it could go up to about 95,000 square foot. And the reason I bring all that up is just that we've got a lot to put back. If we're going to take down, I will kind of reemphasize, this building is roughly 85,000 square foot. The program that is within that building is all one level. It's not a two-story stack. So it looks bigger in mass. When we consolidate down and go up, that's what this starts to do. But I'm not afraid of doing a vertical building, a two-story building. That is very common to look at. Your campus has a lot of buildings that have verticality. So I don't feel like that's anything that we should worry about from a constructability standpoint. I think it becomes something that we're trying to be cautious about, not blowing up too much of our space, taking up too much parking space. We know we need to preserve some of the parking. You've obviously paid for that in your past, but we also want to be careful about how much we displace. In the future with this option, the building comes down and you gain parking ability. You gain potentially more access to the north side of that. Scheme number 2, or option 2, is a split option. I bring this one to the table only because this is an option that I think preserves the core of your campus. This is an option that in some ways could limit how much construction is going on. We might find ourselves that we like some of this, we may not like all of it. What I have done is split academic space and the cafeteria and the practice facility into 2 compartments. Reason doing that is just purely about adjacencies to existing facilities. So again, thinking the cafeteria might be over here, there could be some loading and unloading, there could be the practice gym and courts that supply and service the main performance gym adjacent to it. So again, keeping kind of your athletics consolidated, and then going vertical with your academics. Some pros and cons of this one is definitely one of the things that I think are nerve-wracking is that you have to get rid of a lot of your current facility. You have to demo that to build up, right? So that's going to have an impact from a long-term, how do we keep the school going, where in the core of campus it starts to get a little, we're going to have to be heavy into construction. It does maintain the current boulevard and the bomber plane, which in some ways could be sacred, sometimes they could not be. It allows for that easy loading dock. It does give the cafeteria near the student activities, so if you think about events or spaces that you need after hours, you're able to kind of tap into the idea that the cafeteria or the public space is kind of at an edge of the campus. It does give you a new front face to the campus between this building and this building, whereas if we just renovate the existing, maybe that is limited on how much we renovate. The admin feels like it kind of wants to be at the front, so you do feel like you let your visitors in the campus a little bit before they go into that threshold. So that could be something that we could debate whether that's a pro or con. There is some parking loss near the stadium with this option. I have concerns about that because I know how much parking is valuable when you have events, and especially if you're sharing that parking between football and basketball in certain times of the year, those things can be problematic. And then tight building clearances near the existing buildings. I would say that there are times that this is challenging because this building has to remain going while we build this, as well as this. So you're going to have student activity, finding ways of going around that construction. So there's some challenges of this option. Again, 3-dimensionally, just starting to see the size of this, of course. What it does allow us to do from a constructability standpoint is you could build this at, whether you phase it or you build this in a way that this can be under construction and not interrupt, and then you move on to do the academic space. Concept 3 was one that I think we challenged ourselves to look at and said, you know, what happens if we lightly renovate some of our existing? We know that that might want to be part of the scope, but what happens if we have what we call a greenfield site? You know, what if we use the fields that we have? What if we use that site in a way? There's some things that I really love about this option because it gives you flexibility for long-term growth. Both these next two options start to give you that freedom of saying, okay, if we ever, you know, restructure our grade levels in the future, or we grow at a point, you know, what do we do when we grow? This option kind of allows for that flexibility. What you'll notice here is this does still have your 30 classrooms with the 4 labs. Your special education, your cafeteria stays to one side. There's been an option that I think that this road could be manipulated or changed. This was an option that I think, Jason, you had brought up, that it's like, hey, we've been talking over time. What happens if we punch through that? How do we allow flexibility there? I think you could put the practice facility close to the other gym, and at the same time the cafeteria over to an edge. So again, you're pulling from your students being able to go to that cafeteria. I would say walkability is going to be important. If you have students coming from the gymnasium or performing arts center, they only have so much time. That location of where that cafeteria will grow will be important to investigate. We want typically your cafeteria stay centralized to campus for those reasons. We know that students only have so many minutes between classes. And so this one does lend itself to having some separation from the rest of campus. But the pros were a greenfield site. It can be built, if you will, as campus is unchanged. And then you schedule your renovation at a time where this is up and running. There's no loss of parking, so there's a pro there. The cafeteria could be, based on how we lay it out, could be a pro that it is going on so that you don't interrupt your existing activity gym, again, close to other programs. The main circulation corridor and the bomber plane stays intact. And then some cons, obviously, is we would displace our field. So we'd have to look at where are we going to go there. A con would be that we just sprawl our campus out a little bit. I'm not as worried about that because I know so much of your 9th grade is currently working their way down. They have programs within the high school that they have to use. So in some ways, this might, you know, negate some of the concerns about students moving so much back and forth, because you're actually bringing academic space closer to some of those areas of growth. And then, you know, some would say, well, does it feel separated from campus? You're actually making probably more of a campus. It does feel separated from the core, but it actually kind of changes that nucleus to a different area. So there's something there that could work. And you'll also see it kind of in some form, kind of a bubble diagram where those programs can go. I would say this one gives you an opportunity to really think about what the new face of campus is. I think last time we asked, you know, is this really the front of campus now? Is it coming from the north? You know, what does the front of this building look like? There's areas here that all of that can kind of change. And then lastly, the fourth one I just bring to you is a bit of a hybrid. This one is where, you know, we think about the campus in a way. This mimics some of the things that we looked at and explored in detail the last time we've met. There's things about this one that kind of can work from a core move. At the same time, it does limit us in ways of, like, we're having to build, it would challenge the notion whether the library is sacred or not. And that's something I think the board would want to weigh in and say, hey, that library that we did 15 to 18 years ago, you know, we want to leave it intact or not. This option is a stacked option. It stays 2 stories, but it allows us to kind of grow and head kind of to the west, if you will, towards the other areas of that greenfield site. There's some things about it that the only reason I kind of bring this is because it gives you a new face in the heart of campus. It maintains the boulevard, like we said before. Admin stays kind of near the front of the campus. It minimizes parking. Some real tight ones is it kind of shuts down a lot of things in between. Obviously, to demo what we have here and start a construction site, we're going to want to maintain about 20 feet from each of that. Now, it's not uncommon to build on a campus during a year or two. It's a disruption over the course of those 2 years. But when you think long term, sometimes this option could find itself back into the equation, because if you think beyond the constructability of it, it actually could be a new front, and it maintains kind of your overall campus structure. Mind you that whether it's from the east or from the north, both of these facades could be a front door. You know, I don't negate the fact that that gives us this ability. What I had also done is there could be a way to stage this where the practice facility that's under the circus tent right now, when they demo that building, we could demo around it. We open it up. We don't know exactly. I mean, that building has been kind of capsulated in time. So, you know, you're going to open that up and you're going to see an old roof and HVAC units, but you might be able to maintain that during construction until we put a new practice facility in this location. Why that's important is that practice facility for those programs, volleyball, you know, the junior high practice, all the things that you do, PE, we know we can't go away from that. There's so many that are using it. It makes the most sense that it would be adjacent to your performance gym. We just got to figure out timing that would work. What this option also does is give you potential future expansion in a way to the west. And then we talked earlier on, if I remember right, we dove a little bit deeper in our last session whether we want to connect these. So some of this program could be shifted over and connect, but I left it kind of grayed out as when do we want to move that, or how do we want to move that? Because we might want to say, hey, we're going to maintain this road as we currently have it. We also know that there's about 13 to 15 feet of grade change between this portion of campus in the west. And so as you go west, it might only find that we're 1 story in these levels over here and 2 story in some of this. So there's some things that allow that to kind of work. We don't have to step as much. So I bring some of these pros and cons just kind of to the table for those reasons, and you can kind of see what it meant to kind of chop out the core of the campus. So for me tonight, you know, where we're headed is we're going to try to land on one of these options, and we would then spend a lot more time into a schematic design of what does that look like, what are the actual layout. While I've kind of flirted with that in this option, we're kind of showing some corridors. We're maintaining 10-foot corridors, so when you see this little white gap, that's what that is. These classroom spaces are calibrated at their 850 to 900 square foot capacity. The labs are 1,200 to 1,500, depending on what program it is. What you're noticing here is a cafeteria in each of these options that are roughly 12,000 square foot. This gives us the ability to do what we need to. And then you'll notice the little darker one is the kitchen, so where those are. And then the practice facility is purely a 1-for-1 ratio. That practice facility is the same size as what we currently have. So in all of these options, what we've done is tried to pull teachers and staff a little bit. Thanks to Ms. Dewey, Mr. Knight, and Mary Beth, we're able to kind of get a little bit of like, what do they need? How are they going to be successful? What is necessity, you know? And we've tried to put that program in here so that it's a clean picture of size and scale. And you know, for what it's worth, we want to just get it right. And I think you want to get it right. So I'm going to kind of open it up to the floor as a working session. And we can go back to any one of these and kind of dive deeper into them. But I wanted to bring them in front of you. I personally don't have a preference yet. I mean, I'm convinced that we can design a facility that's going to work great for you, whatever option we go. I think it's a really challenge is, what do we want to do long term? What do we want our campus to look like? How do we want it to function? Because what we have now will change drastically. Without that bigger building, it's going to give us a lot of flexibility. What that future is for the north could change a lot. It could be at the moment a parking lot, it could be where your future growth potential is. There's things about each one of these that are pros and cons that I think open it up for that discussion. Okay. Any big questions or thoughts?
Scheme 1, the first one you showed,
Yes, sir.
that circle parking lot in the front, that, you pull up,
Yes, sir.
at that point now, we have a rough time parking. Then we would have to probably actually add an extra lane on Balmer Boulevard to get to that when we have
That's a good point.
Events.
the events and everything. So we'd have to start at the end of our property going east, coming west, and add another lane in that right lane
Mm.
to do that, in order for it to function properly.
Does bottleneck a lot of things.
Mhm.
You're absolutely
Good
right.
point.
That is probably the most secure way of doing this, as far as building for security reasons, looking at it. But
When you
I
go,
really think it's probably the least disruptive
Right.
During the construction.
Mm-hmm.
When we start going right down the middle, basically, of campus, and we've got half our students on one side of campus and half our students on the other side of campus, that's a problem. It's a real problem.
if you look at 4, the second, the last slide,
This one
no, go one more.
here? Yep.
To me, that's really secure as well. That's
Mhm.
one of
Right.
the things
It's all
I
internal.
noticed.
It is.
But it does not, it definitely,
Yeah, that's
That'll be
right in the
disruptive,
middle.
yeah.
but
Right in
man,
the
it's
middle.
tight.
With the cafeteria right in the middle too.
Aren't we, isn't that just replanning what was planned before? Isn't the previous plan very similar to
similar.
this?
Very similar, yeah.
Okay,
2-story versus 3, but yeah, you're right.
that's.
No,
I wasn't involved in the planning on that, but it's very similar. That's where the new campus was gonna go, tear down the
Yes, you're
library,
right.
that, and place it right there.
monetarily wise, what would be the best option?
I think
Good question.
that's a really good question, and it's a harder one for me to answer by myself. I think once our contractor is involved a little bit more, it will help us understand staging and constructability needs. I will say, most contractors will want to have as ease of a
Right,
approach as
right,
possible.
right.
They're gonna look at is, where's my laydown? Where are my trucks going to be 4 hours? What does it feel like at 2 AM when I have to pour concrete? And so there's some things there that when you do in the heart of campus, it is tough, for obvious reasons, but sometimes that toughness only buys a few months of toughness. Maybe that's staged in a way that some of that pouring and dirt work is done during summer months. Obviously, the demo would be done. There's things that can be worked around. Now, at the same time, what I've found at a facility of this size, you're gonna have 100 to 200 workers
Right.
during the course of
Right, yeah, it's
construction.
normal.
So there's a lot of coming and going, and I think I say all that because I warn us all, because as you brought up, I think is a good point. We're gonna have students, we're gonna have people building we're gonna have faculty, we're gonna have events. So there's things that will have to be very carefully choreographed in the way we do construction. And so when it comes down to it, that weighs into time, that's monetarily. It weighs into constructability of how selective I can be to demo versus how aggressive I can be to demo. I will say, I look at campuses like ULAR or UAMS, those are campuses that are built and rebuilt over time on themselves. So it obviously can be done. And I have full confidence in our contractor to be able to do all those things. But I can't really put a number to it at this time. It's kind of harder for me to do that.
On 3, can you tighten it up any?
I can, yeah, absolutely. I think concept 3, yes, we can pull that closer to the road. Right now, it's just kind of a 3-dimensional bubble diagram of saying this is the block of space. What that configuration is if we deem tonight like this scheme 3 site is where we want to go, I'm probably coming back to the next board session with 3 options within that site that allows you to understand what's our growth potential, where's the right place to put that cafeteria and that practice facility, where's the academic space going to be, And so this is just one configuration that just kind of stacks admin, academic space, just so you know where those are. But if that site is what is the most desired by the board, I would kind of come back with options within it.
Can you flip the cafeteria to the other side to make it
Absolutely.
more
That's right.
feasible for the kids? That would be,
Absolutely.
Could you do that?
It's all rock everywhere.
Could you do something like that? Just asking. And then wait to do your practice gym until you
You could.
demoed, and then your
Mhm.
practice gym is right up.
That's right.
And then as far as a safety point, how tight? That's what that's
Mhm.
where I'm thinking now. We want to tighten up. We want fewer entrances. We want,
Yeah.
you know, that's,
Connect it.
how can you tighten it up?
Mm-hmm.
So after our last session, I took the liberty to visit with the teachers that were here, just to get their perspective, because they were really here up and close. And they said, the main thing we want is a smaller campus.
Mm-hmm.
Because they felt like that tightened up, they wanted less outside doors. I mean, this seems so easy, and I love the thought that you can grow, but it does not shrink the footprint, which it's funny, how do you shrink the footprint but yet grow the space?
Mhm.
But that's kind of what you've addressed. I just don't want to lose that focus that the one of the main points of all this is for that security piece of few entrances.
That doesn't-
I look at that and it's the same thing. It stretches us out. Hey, you remove the big top space and then you look at what the campus is gonna look like, and it's just, it's kind of hodgepodge all over the place. It's a long walk from parking, student parking over to classes. The admin, the principals are separated from the main classrooms by a space, that green space, right? That was
Yes, sir.
principal space. I mean, I understand that west side, hey, that's easy, we can construct it, doesn't get in the way, it's ready to build. But I see a lot of problems with that. So for me, in my brain, I'm scratching out scheme number 3. It separates the cafeteria, even if you switch it, you know, even further from now. I'm not saying we need to make plans on it, but hey, we do the veterans, the meal in the cafeteria and walk to the field, like that's a long walk, right? So if there's ever any event where you start in the cafeteria and then move over to the field, like there's a lot of separation there.
Now, on scheme 2, you still have that gap between the buildings
Correct.
there, which is not connected at all, so they still have to go outside to get from point A to point B.
I would say that we could
Or
close those
two.
gaps.
I
I
think you
mean,
can-
for what it's
because remember,
worth,
that
if
would
we
be gone.
felt like, you know, the end of the cafeteria needed to connect to the
Yeah, this part
gym,
would be
those are
gone.
definitely doable
Okay.
moments.
But that would never connect to anything else.
Pardon?
Once the big top's gone, it doesn't connect to anything
That's
else.
right.
Right.
It's
This-
just
this
out,
is
yeah,
owned
that's
outside.
just your
No instructional
outside,
space
that's
is
just,
there.
That's right.
It's just outside, right?
Yeah.
While scheme 2 could work, right, I don't like tearing down the fine art spaces if that space can be renovated.
Right.
And once again, it separates the cafeteria from the
Right.
main. So for me, everything here is pointing towards scheme number 1.
Scheme 4. Can
You know, currently, as you
scheme
drive down Bomber Boulevard, you don't really even see the front of the high school. There is no front. What you see is the loading dock of Dunbar is really kind of the front of the high school. Scheme 1 actually gives an appealing, or can give an appealing front to the school. Hey, there's the front of the school. The cafeteria looks out towards the Bomber Stadium. Doesn't have direct sunlight coming in windows, heating the place up because it's facing to the north. I see a lot of pros to that.
You're not losing a lot of parking either.
You're not losing a lot of parking. You will regain parking in the big top when it's gone, potentially.
And you add that other road if possible,
All your
that would
students.
really work.
I see a lot more benefits to that than,
So
or
can
fewer
you
cons.
provide this look with the big top gone? That's
Yeah.
it's kind of plays with you, because you think you're looking at the overall thing, and that's gonna be
Right.
not there, yeah.
Yeah, I think as we move forward, if this is the desired option, you know, again, to your point earlier, this, right now, this little block of blue space is the practice facility. That could find itself over here, that could change, that space, you know, how we think about that space. In this exhibit, I showed it here, but I think to Ms. Dewey's point, you know, that can change and manipulate. It can allow that connection, and that can be celebrated space in between, a light renovation to the fine arts. There's something about this one that is nice. I think, Dan, to your point, you know, there might be challenges on the parking piece, but again, maybe that is a very only,
Well, it's not really a parking piece, it's the driving.
exactly,
and
Drop off.
The drop off and
Mhm.
pickup piece.
I
right.
mean, you just have to
And you just have to
all of that.
Rethink
reconfigure it a
that.
little bit.
That's
and-
right.
I mean, it's not a lot, it's a bit of work, but it's not a ton of work to do.
Correct.
Two,
That's right.
two things on this one that I want to bring up just from my experience. The cafeteria, can you show where that is?
Yeah.
I know,
currently-
Ms. Partney, you worked at Pinkston? Do you remember walking in from recess with the outside, with the cafeteria right there? It can get pretty nasty pretty quick. Trash, et cetera.
Mm.
Grease traps, et cetera. We were putting, this plan puts that right there. And I do have a little, and I don't know if you can switch that to somewhere. That's just some personal experience from
Mhm.
schools. And I know, Ms. Partney, you may remember coming in from recess and you have to hold your nose. I mean.
I think the high school will be the same, I guess it
It's
still will
grease.
be.
That's where,
Oh.
where do you put your
It's rendered
dumpsters?
grease and your
and-
dumpsters.
It's just
You
dumpsters,
can't,
yeah.
it's your dumpsters and your grease. There's nothing
There's nothing, yeah. it's
else to
bad.
do. I mean, unless they're doing something new now. I mean, I think it's just trash. I mean, and you can't, that's just part of it.
Plus, you have to be accessible to the trash people.
Yes, you
That's
have
right.
to have a ramp, you have to have a loading dock. I don't know, that's just something to think about.
So reality, that parking kind of by the concession stand between that cafeteria and the concession is gonna be not really student parking.
That's
It's gonna
right.
be a loading ramp,
It's
it's
gonna be
gonna
more
be
your loading.
dumpsters, it's gonna be that
Mhm.
stuff there.
Because I imagine they would come in, they'd pull forward, and then they'd back up and drop off. And to your point, you know, wherever those trash are, you know, we gotta think about prevailing winds. You know, you don't want that experience to,
Because that's where your gym entrance.
that's where your gym entrance is. And even though, like, there might be a way to think about this or separate some of that entrance, you know, that becomes a big focal point. You know, what do we do with that entrance at that point? You know, are we really gonna let all the, you know, during a ball game, do we switch? I think you brought this up last time. You know, what does that feel like? Is this the new entry to the gym? You know, once this goes away, you know, how do you reconfigure this where, you know, maybe this isn't the front door, this becomes the front door. So there's some things there that
You could-
could be swapped around.
Because you'll have more parking in the back,
Mhm.
and I think that would entail maybe a new entrance,
To the
Correct.
gym.
more
The
popular.
back's gonna become the front.
Mm-hmm.
Because you would walk in this way to the gym instead of
Mhm.
parking here.
Yeah.
Any concerns as far as Chris, do you have, thinking about this one, the property itself?
I think the two things,
Anything
well, there's
on
three
any
I
of
really
these?
don't like about it.
Oh.
Two, and I think that the contractor would mention this too, you're gonna lose that entire student parking for the staging area. Gone.
Unless it stays over in that grass area.
Over here.
They're not gonna stage it there, then drag it all the way around to the other side.
Yeah, they're gonna need it. I mean, you're gonna be moving steel and blocks, so you're
Yeah,
gonna
but-
wanna close.
That was gonna be my question, is where do you anticipate your staging? Because that's gonna be a huge amount of material.
So you're gonna lose all of that student parking, you're probably gonna have to move them to the back practice field. And I am not so sure, and it's just, if you guys think it's sacred or not sacred, I think it's gonna cost you as much money or more to remodel than to tear that green part down.
What's the,
This-
Josh, do you have any, I mean, I don't have a clue.
What I find, you know, when I look at the fine arts building, obviously we have walls, windows, and a slab, but we know we have roof issues that will need to be addressed. We're gonna have to change some configurations, so the wall partitions and things like that. Electrical gets upgraded, you know, that facility would need, at that point, be brought to code because of its square footage, so we'd have to put fire suppression in it. So I would argue that you're gonna find that it's probably just the same cost as new construction, which can hurt us, obviously. You'd like to think there's some value there, but again, we're working with a building that's quite a bit older, so once you bring it up to code, there's gonna be things that are not easy. And renovation is, even though you're not, it's not new construction, they have to go through walls, they've gotta chase things that are set in stone that they weren't used to. And I find that renovation's just as expensive and sometimes more expensive. If there's abatement that is needed for any kind of asbestos in the tile or things that we just don't know. We haven't done a phase one or a deep dive on that building, just because up to this point, we didn't know if we were gonna keep it or not. So I would love to walk it with the contractor and dive a little deeper on the cost model on that. But it's something to be considering, you know, how much renovation are we gonna be doing to it?
I remember when Eliza was here, we had the formula that she had for the state,
That's right.
how many years of life.
Mm-hmm.
That one doesn't have very many more years before they deem it,
Dead.
you know, diabetes in the negative. That one's getting close, so.
It's right
we're
on
gonna
the-
spend that much money and then how many years before they say,
Something to think
old
about.
building's still an old building?
Basically, the library's the
Do you know approximately how many cars or vehicles are on the property each day?
600 at least, at least. Is that, Ms. Russell?
Yeah.
Is that a pretty good guess? That's
We
guessing.
don't have enough parking right now.
That's just guessing.
So basically the original.
I don't know,
idea.
that's, we just,
I think I talked last time, if it made sense, right, removing the fine art space and building, if it allows us to build more compactly, almost in scheme 2, you know, I could live with that. I tend to think of the library as sacred, at least right now, that's kind of my assumption. There's no way, in your opinion, to build around the library, say, in scheme 4, where, hey, you tear that library down, you turn right around and build library space in the northeast corner right there. There's no way to build around that library and utilize that space. Is
The
that correct?
biggest, probably the challenge with our library is there's so much grade change. We got a lot of water coming in, we got in and out of that building. There's some things that are kind of hurting us because of the elevational change. If you scrape it away, you get rid of it, and you know you're able to manipulate the ground plane, there's a little bit easier ways of construction around it. The hard part is that, I'll use this exhibit, is there's just so much kind of coming in and around. It's a tight site,
Right.
and because of its current size, it just kind of is this awkward size. You know, it's kind of in the middle. It's not too big. It's probably a little small for other academic uses, and so what I'm probably most concerned about is when you start to do that, you know, how do you add on? You can't add on to the north, you add on to the west, or you manipulate that. There's a lot of ups and downs. And I think our contractor might say, you know, that's gonna be limiting, because if there's 15 foot of change, in this case, you know, how do I kind of tie it together? What do I do about vertical circulation? So there's some challenges with it.
Sure.
We faced this early on in the last campaign, and found ourselves kind of like, man, it's just kind of right smack dab where we wish it wasn't. It's there, but you know, to build around it, it kind of presents this problem that we currently have with the current buildings. And so I wish that it had. I either wish it was a little bit bigger. I wish it was oriented a little bit differently. It's kind of in that awkward moment of space. So yeah.
So if you go to 4, option 4, that, and I know, I mean, the second thing after let's reduce the footprint of the construction was the library, and the library is special. New spaces will become special as well. This does allow for growth, even if some point down the road you end up in that practice field.
Mhm.
That makes an easy connection piece. It does keep your front, and I love on the next slide where you can still come out the front and make a singular entrance, which, honest to goodness, I hear that all the time. I think we've really got to pay attention to a single entrance. From the last campaign, one of the problems was some of the materials that were going to be used. It was the glass wall. It was, everything was luxurious. And we all love luxury, but we also love to pay our bills. Since this is so similar to that campaign, is there a way to bring the cost down using pretty, but not over-the-top luxurious materials.
Yeah, I think last time we had both storefront and masonry. We tried to mix and match a lot of the masonry color
Mhm.
that's on campus. It did have glass going into those public areas. In this case, I think it's been expressed to not go 3 levels. In doing so, it would allow us to push out this way, so you're gonna bring costs down in that. Instead of going 3 levels, you're gonna go 2. I would also say that there's some moments here that practice facility, bringing back that conversation earlier, that could be negotiated a little bit differently, and where does that go? I think you're gonna find that. I also say the constructability from mass timber beforehand to, in this case, maybe CMU or steel construction, would change that. I find that I've got a project going on right now, and the mass timber moves the needle a little bit. It doesn't move it a lot, but I would say this would be cheaper because we only be going 2 levels. We'd have less stops for our elevators, less vertical circulation. Those things have value, and those things will bring the value down by not having them. Where we want to be careful is we just don't want to build more square footage than we need. We got to figure out if this location is the way we want to connect. I would probably move some of these classrooms, find ways where that circulation is tighter. We're not going to have a big concourse, if you will. We typically design most of our corridors about 10 foot. They used to be 12 foot with lockers. We don't really do lockers as much anymore, so we try to compact where we need to. Sometimes you do 8 foot in certain areas in secondary kind of corridors. So there's things that we can do to kind of continue to compact this down. So.
Could you put your practice gym, scoot it down into there,
Mhm.
and then you tie it in because it's a second phase?
That's right.
So now it is tied in.
That's right.
So it would be one entrance because kids would not need to go outside to get to the gym.
That's right.
They would go through the
Mhm.
newest practice facility, because it's not the new gym.
That's
We call it the new gym and the old gym, but neither one's very new. So that it would be connected, not right at first. It would take,
Right.
because you'd have to take
I
that
think it's
down.
that promise. If I hear
mean,
anything,
is that,
yes.
would that
that's-
work? Would that even work?
Yeah, I think so. I think you could move that practice gym and let it be the thing that gives you that
That
new entrance.
connects
And
the
holds
gym.
it all together. It's kind of the glue that bonds everything. You could, especially because now this is changed so much. You can restructure some of the parking that is displaced here, over here. You're gaining more parking in this option. Because reality is you're not really taking up a whole lot of this parking. I mean, there's only a handful of parking spots displaced, but you're gaining a lot back. That gym slides down this location, it reorients. I mean, there's some real pros in this one if this other stuff is not sacred. And I was reluctant to show this one because it implies that we're removing the library. And there's some inefficiency of like, we got rid of a building to build that building in a new location. But I understand, Scott, to your point, it's like, we've already bought that building once. It's just kind of in an odd spot.
And that's the real problem with it, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was our last millage attempt that was successful,
Mhm.
right? And so it was part of that millage, and it's, what was that, 30-year millage? And you said 18 years, I don't think it's been that long.
Yeah, I'm
And
not
we're
sure.
only
that
halfway,
they-
we're only half,
We're still paying on
It's
it.
15.
yeah, if my car only lasted half of the mortgage, I wouldn't be very happy.
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, so I kind of have a question. So this is gonna be pushing out to the road. Chris talked about easements, pipes, things like that.
We're good.
Not an
It's
issue.
ours.
It's ours, okay. Can you go back to slide 1 real quick? Or the scheme one?
Sure.
Okay, can you just, with your mouse, point which part of the big top is completely gonna be demoed?
Basically the whole big top to this line.
To that line?
Yes, sir.
So what if you took your cafeteria with all the garbage things and everything else and popped it right there?
You can't feed the kids.
You can't feed the kids for while you're building, and we don't have a kitchen big enough at this point to take care of high school along with everybody else.
Yeah,
It's a
That
great
would've been-
idea. It's a
That
fantastic
would be an
idea.
awesome
That's,
idea if we could
Because that
figure
way
out.
you could just
I'd
keep
say, yeah.
all that stuff there.
You do your
can
cafe,
still have the extra
yes.
parking,
Mhm.
you expand parking right there
Food
for
trucks.
delivery.
You don't have to find a bunch.
A bunch of food trucks.
I mean,
I was
you
thinking
could
that very
you
thing.
could
I love
always
that.
see if
Big-
another
big circus
school right up the road could handle the load temporarily.
Mr. Knight, we talked about it today.
You know, if it was a kindergarten, maybe Nelson Lopes, yeah. I don't think so, not in high school.
1,000
The
kids.
cafeteria is one of the things that makes this so hard.
I know building next to buildings is a challenge, right? So looking at scheme 2, where you tear out the fine art section, you're building right next to two different buildings, right? Next to the library and the building just to the south. If you could build that, you know, we talked a little bit about using that courtyard space.
That's right.
Is there any possibility of combining, say, a scheme 1, but maybe putting the cafeteria kind of where the courtyard is, so everything goes out the back, of the backside? You know, I
Mhm.
still think you can, I mean, scheme 1, it's a first look at it. I think it
Yeah.
can still get moved around, so we solve that cafeteria and the dumpster loading being right outside the gym, right, the
Mhm.
entrance to the gym.
Scott, go up there, show me where you're talking about the cafeteria. You've lost-
asked a little bit about using this space here before. Hey, is this space
Right.
usable at all? So if we were saying, hey, let's look in this route, let's dive down deeper, is there a way to relocate that cafeteria maybe into this
Mhm.
space? Where you've got loading dock, you've got dumpsters on the backside.
Okay.
That's the question I was just asking.
Good idea.
You control that.
Well, here's another question. Could you
What?
build and remodel all of this stuff during a working school year? Keep the big top and the cafeteria open and then roll around in the summer, knock that thing down and get the cafeteria done?
Whew, 68 days. I don't know about
Yeah.
I
that.
mean,
They
it'd
do it on
be, it'd be a
TV.
crunch, but
100 days.
A lot of money.
100 days.
I don't know that you could actually get that much construction done that quick. We're doing a few other
That's big.
cafeteria renovations, and they typically always be the summer months, and they're light renovations, they're finishes, hoods, HVAC, and even those are really challenging. To actually build the full building, get the steel, I don't know anybody that could quite pull that off. Most of mine, even on the simple stuff, it's a challenge, just because lead times on certain items. Even if you queue it up, it's, you know, lighting's usually about an 8-week turnaround, 12-week on fume hoods. There's just so much little intricacies on a cafeteria that make that,
All the suppression.
yeah,
You
it
know,
makes it
that's all-
really
takes
hard.
a long time to get that all in.
you know.
The quickest one I've been a member of has been about 80 days.
Yeah.
And that was just a little Highland, Arkansas little addition they did there. And it was 80 days, and they're actually over past the kids. They had actually not used that cafeteria for a little while and had to go to a different school even.
So, you got the back of the library, right?
Mhm.
And we talked, you had a plan where you were going out toward the practice
the
field
library
on the
into
practice.
cafeteria.
So can you go from the
Would it be
back
big enough?
of the library and make a T?
You could add it to
Where the library's almost, you could come in the library from administrative offices and you go out the library toward the cafeteria. Not in the, if you're saying that's too tight a spot, I don't know.
What if you made the
Yeah, I
library
kind
part of
of
the
feel like
cafeteria?
that's similar to what Scott's saying,
It
is
is,
that,
it's
you know,
similar,
could
it's
that
just a different
cafeteria
reason.
just find itself over here?
Where it'd be
Hmm.
long, like
Mhm.
you're kind of making a long cafeteria instead of
Mhm.
I mean, could you do something? Or even take where Scott was saying and come on around and you've got, you know, when you go to other schools, they're kind of interesting. They're not just a
What if-
box.
What if
Yeah.
you made part of the library the cafeteria and moved the cafeteria, or the library where the cafeteria is?
Put it
And
in-
made all that open space plus the library a cafeteria, the
Put-
existing
So you
library.
still have to take the library down?
Put an
You wouldn't take
addition onto the
down.
library
Your
that's got
addition
the
would be
actual
making it part
kitchen
where the kids would
space.
sit in that library area. Make the kitchen part and all the
Yeah.
other section, make the library where the cafeteria is on that picture.
Oh.
So if you put an
So
addition onto the
library's looking
library.
over out instead. And then,
Academics,
like
go
this.
figure that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, instead of doing it here, keep this, make this part of the cafeteria where people actually will sit and stuff in that area, put your kitchen area and everything in this area.
Yeah.
Make it all, and then you've got your entrance still, and then move the library here.
Don't you already have convocation there already? With the students' coffee shop?
No, that's in the
That's not a
Vax
commercial
building.
That's in the other building.
Yeah.
So you'd have all your vent hoods and all that stuff in that
Everything would be-
space where the, so you're utilizing that
You
space.
Utilizing this
Right.
space and still keeping this, but you repurposing
That
it.
makes
Repurpose
sense,
the
yeah.
use of it.
You're just using it in a different form,
The
yeah.
library's what?
And the library,
Lower
would have a nice
2,000
look
square
out to
feet?
this.
How many thousand?
How many square feet is in the library and can you set, is that big enough for a cafeteria and?
Change lunch hours.
Is
I
it
think
be
that-
12 you need about 12,000 for cafeteria.
You 12,000 square feet?
That's
Isn't the
about-
library about 2,000 square feet right now, or a
Yeah,
little
it's-
north of it?
Yeah, I think it's a little higher, I think it's like 35.
Well, those numbers are way off then for,
And what's the
Well,
rest
you
of that
can
open
still go out,
space?
you're saying use what we have, just open it up.
Well, yeah, I mean, if, I'm kind of looking at it, I'm also thinking, you know, how do you,
So moving into that green
Grade
space
wise,
too.
you're not going backwards.
Could also use some of that green space that you have behind it.
yeah.
Like the part you have shaded green right
Yes.
now, you could use that as part of it too.
Oh,
You can
that's
connect
true,
that.
too.
yeah, that could be maybe your new front of cafeteria.
Right.
I wish this road, we didn't quite inherit this road that kind of went quite this geometry. I wish it was able to be straightened up a little bit more. It gave us a little bit more buffer. At the time, it made sense, right? It connects, it's close to
Right.
things, but it's kind of hindering us in this growth potential. But I think my point would be is if we think that scheme one is probably got the most pros, just we gotta figure out this cafeteria piece, then we can continue to noodle on that and test how much square foot, where is it gonna go? I have the drawings for this building, you know, what does that look like? You know, cause even though this building is made up of a few classrooms and a main central open space, we can see how much dining area that would allow and how much more dining we need. And then when we lay in about 3,000 square foot of kitchen, because we have 2 freezers, cold storage, 2 freezers, and then we're gonna have dry storage. Those are the areas that have to be plugged in from the outside. So,
Right.
you know, that would be the thing to say, all right, what does that do? How's that kitchen get serviced? That trash makes more sense to be over here to the west. Again, it's not as problematic. You've got some sort of road that you can plug in and grab it and go. So there's things there that are pros to put that cafeteria in that direction.
Could the cafeteria be where you have the gym?
Sorry, right here?
Yeah. And then you put your gym, because your building's coming down.
Yeah.
I mean, I just thinking, or maybe I just thinking.
Yeah.
You still got your gym entrance.
It
but
potentially could, as long as we can get a truck. When this goes away,
When that goes away, you could.
when this goes away, you can get a truck down here, because I'd imagine this being a parking lot in some regards. They could come in, back in, and you'd keep that. Typically, that's why the cafeterias are always on a perimeter, because it's easy to kind of plug and go.
And then your gym could
That's
be
right.
You must have the smell in the back of the building.
over there where the old gym is right now.
where that green space is,
None of that
the
connects.
counseling center, principal's office, is that enough square footage to be the cafeteria?
Structure
If they
connects.
swap those where, hey, cafeteria,
It
I mean, the
is.
library's on the other side of the
Yeah,
cafeteria.
that makes
That's a good idea.
Doing the-
Yeah, yeah, you can flip these fairly
If
easily.
it comes to the gym, they can back into here,
That's the
garbage bins
cafeteria.
over here.
Mhm.
There's nothing, no one would ever need to really go into this space
That's
with this layout, right?
Well, kids are there.
The students wouldn't need to be here, so this
Yeah,
is
the
loading
kids
dock.
have to change classes.
Mm-hmm.
That's how our kids have,
That's how your
Scott, our
kids-
kids have to go to class.
That's the only access
They're
point
not
to any of those
connected.
buildings.
Not to those. The 2 on the bottom, like, no, over, up. Up. Right there. That's your fax
agri.
and your agri and your bits. Those are all classrooms and our kids have to get there. That's the only thing.
But
That doesn't mean they can't.
Yeah, to your point,
The
you could
hallway.
connect
So you
a
can
little bit
hallway there.
easier, maybe right here and here,
Okay.
Sure.
potentially.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't have to.
Where they wouldn't be walking outside to go to class.
No, it'd
Yeah.
just be a regular hallway, yeah.
I mean, I think
Interior
that's the
hallway.
big issue. They don't want kids going
You enclose
outside to go
campus.
to
We need to be-
class.
Right,
So
yeah,
we
an
need to
enclosed
close
campus.
off all those corridors anyway.
So I think that was one of the just staples of, or almost a requirement, right? Where we're not
Yes.
walking around outside, the campus is closed in. You know, for me, we've kind of talked about, but that library, that was, gave so much heartburn before, is one, we're still paying on it, but $350 a square foot is what I'm hearing. There's 2,000 square feet. Just to tear it down and spend, on a square foot, it's $750,000 to rebuild it. I mean, so you had to tear down and then rebuild it. Like, if there's any way to maintain that library, we should figure that into the plan and keep it.
Yeah.
And maybe it shouldn't matter at this point, but it sends a bad vibe to the voters when what you just built.
You're tearing
Still
it down.
paying
We're
on
still
it.
paying on it, and then
Yeah.
it's a $750,000.
It's almost $1 million.
But to
Dollars.
repurpose it does not send a bad vibe. It's just we're trying to make a cohesive, enclosed.
When you look at if it
The
cost
whole
you $1 million to repurpose it,
I know. Yeah.
what,
So.
What have
re-
you gained
Then that doesn't
you
make
didn't,
sense.
you
Haven't
know,
gained anything.
So renovation's gonna be almost the same cost.
as tearing it
as
down?
Tearing it down.
That's per
It's-
Gregory
Even at the
Construction.
Now, one thing I would
Okay.
say though, in its current
Something
state, it needs less renovation.
Right.
than some
Than
of
like
the
the
other
front,
buildings.
is
That's
that
right.
what you're, so
Mhm.
the fine arts, that renovation will probably be dollar.
Yeah, cause it's a
dollar.
good building, to your point. I mean,
But the
The
library's a
library or
little
the
less.
fine arts?
the current library
It's a
is,
good building.
is in great
It's a
shape.
good building.
So, yeah.
So that's where tearing it down is just,
Yeah.
doesn't make sense in this plan.
So if we're, doesn't cost as much to repurpose it, and the fine arts is in, like it's gonna be then, this is the time, I just don't see that we spend the money to repurpose something that we're gonna have the same discussion in about 10 years. Well, we spent money on that to repurpose it, and now it's not usable.
So that's more like scheme two.
Well,
Well, it's still
Yeah.
scheme one, I just think,
Scheme two's got it. That's-
Gone?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that keeps your library, but tears down the fine arts.
yeah,
but it
does.
separates,
My heart's
separates
full.
the gym and everything across the bomber, but
We could just figure out.
to your point, if it's gonna be
Mhm. I like
$350 to new space and $340 or $330 to renovate it, yeah, let's build new. It makes sense to.
That
to
just
tear
makes
down and build
sense, so
new.
that we're not having the exact same discussion in
Correct.
10 to 15 years.
If it's, if the
Let me
prices
throw
are no
this
kidding
option
equal, it
in.
makes sense.
A hybrid of concept two could be that the cafeteria that we're struggling with here
Mhm.
finds itself over here.
Mhm.
We leave the library, we put new academic space, and yes, the eventual practice facility needs to be near here or back over here.
Still separated.
There's something about this option that could work as long as we're comfortable pushing that cafeteria over here. Now, does that reshift the campus? Does that hurt us? I mean, in some ways, it puts the cafeteria in the center of campus. If this space finds itself over here, then we're not really displacing some of the parking concerns that we've had. So there could be a hybrid option of two, depending on, based on this discussion, that cafeteria over here could work. The
I like
downside
that.
is you're kind of demoing all of the fine
The
arts.
cafeteria in the center is a positive to me. That's,
It is the,
that's a mental health piece, you know, that's where you
Location.
gather, that's where you socialize, that's where good things
You
happen.
make it convenient and they will go.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
right.
Actually, having it toward the front of your campus,
Mhm.
depending on what you use it for, if you have, you know,
It's
if
your
you
public,
have
yeah.
things, it can become more of a public space to have meetings and different things. At that point, it makes sense to have it toward the front of the campus.
on that note,
that's where
I
it was
love
in
this
the original
collaboration
drawing.
we're doing. This is fantastic. We're gonna take a little quick break. It's not executive session or anything, but a slight break for a little
Recess.
A little
business.
recess.
A little recess for pizza and a
Little
bathroom
recess for a
and
bathroom
coffee
break
and
and something to drink, something to eat.
And then dish room.
We are back,
Really bad.
and keep eating.
Still eating.
Sorry, everybody, we'll try not to compound.
Smack it in the mic.
Start on our next continuation of our work session. Lots of good questions, lots of, the cafeteria seems to be our stumper.
Josh, I wanted to ask a question, even before you got to it on Scheme 4.
Yeah, of course.
Just for my knowledge, just for the public's knowledge, the current old gym activity space, right? You talked about potentially leaving it there. Before you even got to that, I was thinking, is there any way to save that space? I know it's old.
Right.
Maybe, you and Chris, have we looked at, is there any way to, when you peel the big top off of it, put a new roof on it perhaps and save that space at all, or it's no kidding?
You gone down the locker room?
The plumbing is really compromised.
Okay, so there's no benefit of saving that space as the old gym?
It's been a
character.
challenge for sure. I think the plumbing has been probably the biggest challenge is that
Okay.
that doesn't work. Yes, it has a roof. We don't really know, right now it's got an old, I think, I've lost the term. It's not a TPO, but it's got an older roof on it right now. Forgive me. Yeah, it is a gravel. Yeah, I don't know why I went blank. I'll think of it right at the wrong moment. But outside of the walls, it does have some nice wood structure. I recall a lot of glue lamination that's nice, but it's the underside that's the problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like Kingston Gym, it's got a lot of character. It's old, but there's a lot of character there. I don't remember this space, the times I've been having that much character in it, so, but
I think the floor is buckling in there.
probably is. Anyway, that was the question. Hey, is there any usable space to that?
And the-
It is no.
A remodel, if I remember correctly, of that space has been
Right.
looked at before, like that entire space, and it had to do with, you could not, it would not handle fire suppression because we would be remodeling a percentage that you would have to add, and that, those still, am I
Yeah.
close to correct
Well,
on that? It couldn't
if you
handle the weight.
remove, so the biggest concern of well, I think if you remove the big top and you just leave the core old gymnasium there,
just-
that's where that is even more challenging because of the fire suppression system that would be needed.
Okay.
The big top itself would have a struggle holding that kind of suppression,
Sure.
let alone the older
The older
facility.
gym, got it.
I'm not saying it can't 100% be figured out, but it gets really, is the juice worth the squeeze on that one?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I think there's been some really good debate on where the location is. I think some of my takeaways is that we really like that the core could be maintained. We've got to figure out the cafeteria. And I think if Scheme 2, I know there's some concerns about it. It could be a hybrid. Where could some of this space be? Where does that cafeteria land? While early on, I think it was not as favorable, but there's some things about leaving the library alone. Thinking about that, Chris, you might have a little bit more insight on the contractor's perception of 2 on phasing and where you could put some of this. But there might be reasons why 2 might be more of a pro than a con than it once was.
If you were to combine maybe 2 and 4, like 4, you show the future potential of coming out to where the bomber is and connects up to the gym.
Right.
If you can combine 2 and 4 to incorporate the cafeteria there,
Right.
like to me, that seems like almost a winning combination. The
Right.
cafeteria could almost be in the center of that space. You bring, anyway, it's something that,
With that forward front, you can still make that singular entrance.
correct.
And which way do you go?
You don't lose the parking, right? Parking we've paid for, but you come out towards the bomber, right? That slide, I don't know if you can get to
That's
that
right.
slide so people can see it, but on slide Scheme 4, the future look.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you could combine Scheme 2 with maybe that blue highlighted space, future,
That's right.
you could get it all into that one spot between the library.
And then you move this cafeteria over here and you leave
No.
the library alone.
I was saying if you, I wanted the cafeteria to kind of be more in the center space,
Oh, okay.
like Scheme 2.
Mhm.
Right, so Scheme 2's got the cafeteria on the other side of the bomber. I mean, if you were to do like Scheme 3, the future use, have it extend more into that bomber space, basically bring the cafeteria of Scheme 2 into the main core there.
Mhm.
Which would bring the core out towards where the bomber is, connect up to the gym. The cafeteria could maybe be in the center of that space and classrooms around it or something to that. But almost combined, and bring the cafeteria stuff over to that, combine, make it look like number 4, but number 4 is shifted to the east and doesn't touch the library almost.
Gotcha.
So this was suggested, it was sent after our last planning session. And if we're looking at this extending, it might be a possibility that wouldn't break the bank. Leave the bomber plane where it is, but you do have that cafeteria where the fine arts space is. You have come out, the bomber plane would almost be enclosed in the corridor. The corridor, which this may be like the plan was last time, is 2-story. The bomber plane is internal rather than external, and you built around it. Is that a possibility, or is that a construction nightmare?
Do we ever
It
have to
goes
get to
back
the plane, though?
It goes back to glass fascia.
It does
and-
go back to that. That's why this is coming out of my mouth, but
from the ceiling
not
would
as
do
much,
that.
maybe. I don't know.
I think you can handle it.
That plane is how high up in the air, Chris?
Would we have to have permission?
Probably more than a 2-story structure.
I think it's every bit of 24 foot.
Would we have to have permission to do that, Chris, from the Navy?
Probably.
Yeah, if we do it, we have to have permission.
I have to have permission to paint it, but I'm
Have to-
required to paint it.
It has to have a way out. The
Right.
Navy could reclaim it at
Right.
any
Any
point.
moment. That's what I
was
So it has to
thinking.
have a way out.
Yeah, they could say, nah, it's ours again.
Right. And I'd hate to build around it and have
Didn't take it. and-
something
It
fall
was
and
just
ding up a
something to
wing.
pitch.
No,
I
it's
don't
not.
know.
but-
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
I think I'm all
What
out of
about our
suggestions.
industrial arts building?
Do what?
What about our industrial arts building? What if that was gone? And then you built there and all the way to the road where the nursing home and all the way to the front of that parking lot?
Yeah, that's not considered sacred, is it?
No.
They'd
And
be-
that building is
That's old.
older,
They'd
that
be
building is
excited.
older than
You,
the
But
cent-
wait, it's
the
never
building
been
that.
discussed. I didn't know if it was sacred,
Mm-hmm.
that, what about the FFA barn and all that?
So all
Would
this
that
would go away in that
impede on
option,
that?
Jason?
No, not all of it, just where you're hovering the mouse,
Right here.
that section
Yeah.
there. That other section
Is
is
new.
fairly new.
Yeah.
But that section that you're hovering over is probably the second to the oldest structure on the campus. So those are academic spaces that probably aren't the most efficient for the academics we're doing in them.
Interesting.
And they're also large spaces.
Right.
So you think.
There's
of-
a lot of square footage right here that could be captured. And
Right.
to your point, that's a really big footprint.
So you would leave your fine arts and
Leave the
front
fine arts
office,
building.
possibly
And
facelift.
Maybe put some lipstick on it or something, but.
And then, so we need to look at
But we
replacing
really
those classrooms.
need to think about putting lipstick on an old
Well-
facility. That kind of
But,
stresses me
I mean, you look
out.
at the offices have been remodeled in there. I mean, the entranceways with all of the door structure and stuff, like, that is serviceable space, like, that's
Have you
usable
been in a
space.
meeting when they had the buckets out?
Well, no. but-
I mean, you gotta think of that. How many times are we gonna patch an old facility?
We've probably been putting buckets in a lot of different places on this campus, so.
Yeah,
Even new
that's what we're
places.
trying to
Especially in
fix.
industrial
Yes.
arts.
Mhm.
And we are in there too.
But
Putting buckets in the industrial arts, right?
we want to. We don't have to touch that fine art space if we were to use that agri space down there.
Yeah, but
Right,
that
so
would,
So you're saying
that-
don't remodel it, save that for a later date?
That could be one of those, hey, come on down later when we have the Hackler bond paid off, et cetera. Hey, now we're gonna come back in and maybe add the second and ninth grade spaces or some other stuff. Hey, renovate the front arch. You don't have to touch. We like it, it needs it, but it doesn't have to be touched right now. And it may be a give and take, hey, okay, we want it, but this is gonna take priority, so we're gonna leave that untouched for now.
I'm just gonna be very honest, it's rough.
It is, it
It's
floods
pretty
and
rough.
I
molds
mean,
and, yeah.
and it's
It does
it's pretty
not,
rough.
if you're wanting to present to the world that we care about education and we care about our students,
Right.
that does not do that.
No, it does.
The mold is my biggest thing,
That's
and
a
we've
big-
tried to patch the roof. Chris will be able to speak more, and Ms. Russell, but that's a rough area of that building, and it's mainly in the front offices. That's the worst, that's worse than even the back of that, right, with the art and the, okay.
So just thinking that through, where the agri building goes away.
Gives you cafeteria.
Gives you cafeteria, you
It
can
gives
spun
you
the cafeteria
cafeteria
this
space.
way.
I mean,
It could also give you another runway when you think about it.
you talk about reusing the library space, you know, if you're parking to the north or whatever, the library could actually even become admin offices or even principal offices, and fine art space could go away and it all gets built into the south together. You would have a very compact campus there. The gym, the new gym, is the only piece that's separated almost from everybody.
Put it out.
It's out there by the football field, but, and that's okay.
Is there any concern if that was to go that direction, that the distance between the gym and that new academic space is just far? It's really starting to get, you know, you get to these edges of campus and think, you know, is that 5 minutes, is that 7 minutes between classes?
They're doing it to go to the cafeteria every day.
They're already walking that walk.
That's a good point.
They're doing it
Yeah,
together.
these
And there's
students are
more-
still going.
There's more kids going to that cafeteria than there are the gym.
That's right.
But you could still pull the old new gym, you could still pull it forward some,
Mhm.
right? It wouldn't have to go.
Yeah, you can bring
Still-
it toward,
Yeah, pull it forward.
pull it south.
Mhm.
I mean, kind of like the idea of putting it on the practice field and reimagining the front entrance of your campus. I mean, what if you reimagined the front entrance of the campus between the band hall and the nursing home? What if that was your new front entrance?
Just got to reface Dunbar.
Because those hallways that are there are fairly fresh. I think they're,
Yeah.
They are. Yeah.
but that industrial arts, yeah,
That thing's old.
Could the classroom push forward in that blue, I don't know, that blue library? Could those shift forward?
Mhm.
And then his idea for the agri building and a cafeteria worked out?
Yeah, I think as long as the plane or that, you know, the circle is, if that becomes not sacred, these spaces can slide over. The plane could be relocated or adjusted or placed. It leaves room for leaving the library intact. This slides over. It probably takes some of this and says, okay, we're gonna move cafeteria to your point. Maybe it's right here. Future practice facility right there. There's some things there that could work.
What if you,
I was just talking about the bottom portion, the classrooms themselves, pushing that.
This block over. Mhm.
Like put.
but what if you flip-flop the cafeteria in the classrooms and still pulled it forward? You could leave that library building,
That's right.
and then you would have your entrance, or you'd have your loading dock and stuff for your cafeteria.
Yeah. Yeah, because we really just need, you know, probably 2.5 truck widths to do that. You know, we need 30 to 40 feet of allowing them to come down this road, back up into it, drop off. The grade change is the challenge, and so you'd want that truck to come along this road and then because they gotta go down into that space, you're gonna have basically 2 loading docks. And that, you know, anticipate roughly 48 feet to 60 foot. I don't know quite the school's
Yeah.
capacity of what they normally, you know, get dropped off, but that's typical. They back into it, loading docks here, kitchens on this side. I think, you know, you start to really relook at either repurposing that library or that cafeteria is now into this space, and then all your academic is starting here to here, and you connect. So there's things about this one that just flip flops that could work by leaving and preserving or repurposing that library.
I mean, we're not married to not having a round circle drive, right? Like the practice field for the trucks to come in and out, and that would
By
key up
bringing
a lot of
that,
room.
by bringing that forward, you have one point of entry to get to your front office, your gymnasium, your Dunbar.
So
It's
you're
all-
back.
it's all
And that's what
in
we're
front.
trying to do,
Accomplishes
yeah.
the
It's all in front of you. You
So
can
that
look
goes
at
back
it
to
easy.
one.
Yeah.
Surveillance and all,
Do
you can
what?
look,
Oh,
it says
yeah.
all in front of you. You
And
can
if
look
that
at it
was,
easy with
if
surveillance.
that cafeteria was on the bottom side, you'd still give you a little bit of a green space between the industrial arts building and the new building.
If you look that way, shift it this way, so you preserve the library, that bomber can sit right between the gym and the football field. You actually reclaim, a lot of this can become parking lot, you don't need that division there.
That's right.
You don't need this space, even, like, you can actually, you wouldn't lose the parking here,
Correct.
you could reclaim it right
That's
here.
right.
So the tree barrier is not city law,
We'd have
For-
to add trees, but no.
so that could be taken out.
Yeah, I think that's on your property, and I don't
So it's
know
not
if there's
like
a
a-
tree preservation,
Okay.
but to your point, typically what we find, I mean, every city's different.
Somewhere.
It's
So,
got city, there's some city things like every how many spaces
Yeah.
to have something.
Yeah.
So you're still talking about, if the library's sacred is the word you're using, we're still repurposing it, so it's not the library itself, it's just the building.
The space.
because it's newer.
Mhm.
The structure.
Or it could say the
So we're
library,
still building
yeah.
a new library, but that's 2,000 square feet, right, that we're talking about?
I think it's around
35.
25 to 35.
Okay,
I
it's
can check.
even bigger than.
Okay, so it's bigger.
I think it's 3,500.
35.
And what we're suggesting doesn't say we have to repurpose the library space, it could stay the library.
I think what I would do is, in this scenario, I'd go back and test this, lay it out, and tell you what I could get to fit in there, and tell you what movement we have. But there's things about this one that I really like from your security and your growth potential.
Mhm.
It leaves you open later. You know, there's things that I think could work very well.
That's
easy to
my
stage.
thoughts, that's what, this one was my favorite, thinking as a teacher and mom, safety and being compact. That makes the most sense. And I was thinking the library, not really that large of a space. This allows for future, and we
Right.
have to think
That's right.
about the future.
That's right.
And if we are losing some space, but gaining a whole lot of benefit and priority safety and compacting and limiting the entrances, and we're not losing parking, which is huge. This makes the most sense. I was just, if we pushed it forward a little bit.
Yeah.
But we still
I
need,
still don't think we're saving the library,
Yeah.
but
Well-
we're not displacing students, and that, you know, to me is right up there with safety. As a teacher, allowing education to continue without displacing students and teachers, it's gotta be a top priority.
Last 60 years shows that we're gonna grow, we're gonna change, we're gonna put additions on, like that's a constant. And thinking long term, we know that's gonna happen. I think the path we're going down here kinda combines the positive attributes of all of them. We talked about combining 2 and 4, which is what we're doing, but it also combines some of the positives of number 1 by bringing everything together while maintaining that library space.
So, but moving that plane, you know, you have to get approval.
Yeah, I was gonna ask,
You do.
I
If
didn't,
you,
yeah.
if you tell them you want to move it to a more prominent place where it's viewed better, you could actually move it up. Go back to that last,
Yes, sir.
view that you had. You could actually, you were talking about the trees. You're losing a lot of space right here with just these few trees that
Right.
really aren't giving you that much. And put the plane right up here, almost like at the entrance. Hey, you're coming into bomber country.
There you go.
Move it up there, now that it opens up that whole area back there and gives you a lot more flexibility in how you can do anything.
That's
Right.
right. You could go up here before you're even really into parking displacement, you
Yeah.
know,
As
so.
long as we keep a few trees, we don't need
Oh,
a concrete jungle.
No.
We don't, so would we need the I'll say FFA,
The
the
name.
Industrial Arts Building at all? I mean, now that concerns me, that being, but that's down the road. That allows for growth of that.
Yes, and I don't, at this point, y'all aren't talking about taking it down.
No.
Well, we were considering the
Parts of it,
possibility,
even
looking
if
at
we
it.
did-
But
It's all on the table.
It makes
It's all on the
sense to
table.
me that. the
How old
fun-
is that building?
Well,
1980.
I mean, how
Pretty
bad
sure
is it
it's
to
right.
take down
Is
the
that-
fine arts and the industrial arts spaces?
well, we'll have to replace the
1980.
industrial arts
We will.
spaces too. You would have to.
You
we're
take it away, you
adding-
gotta put it back.
Yeah.
I don't know how many, How many
It
square
gets me
feet?
really nervous to replace both. Like,
Okay.
I mean, just from a standpoint of what is that message? You know, it's one thing we know, we kind of want to take the big top because of its structural concerns, longevity of building, it preserved those 6 buildings. But then when you also try to parlay that into this other 48,000 square foot of industrial space,
It's a lot.
I think
Yeah.
it probably, unless there's just some really solid, like, yeah, everybody needs that. We've got a huge agri program that's growing and we already know that we need more. There's some of those things that could trigger that.
Because there's bathrooms and things in that building that do not function.
I mean,
Yeah.
think about if you built that middle structure like we're looking at, and then the next time down the road, you take that down. Well, now you've got an opportunity to square it up,
That's
Right.
tie it directly into
That
the
might, when
building.
you
That's a
pointed
future
that
project.
out, the squaring it
Yeah.
up instantly jumped
Yeah,
out.
instead
Yeah.
of it looking
There's
like
your
a
compact,
trapezoid.
yeah,
And that's much better space to take down than the library if we need to take down some space.
sure.
Yeah, agreed.
A little more forgiving.
For a contractor's point, that's a lot easier to stage your equipment and do your work from this section.
Correct. Yeah,
Just look, you can use that back field for staging.
yeah, I think this becomes
You
your
can
lay
keep that
down.
off and no one messes with it.
Yeah, by that time, that big top will be gone, and
Mhm.
I think we'll be amazed at how much parking will.
Oh, you're gonna be, yeah. And I think we can lay that out in the
It's
next
a big
iteration.
space.
Which can become
We'll start to
baseball
lay out
field
what that
parking at
parking
some
looks
point,
like to
and-
give you an
Right.
idea of
Nothing
like,
Right over
else.
there.
That's what we were
You know,
just
what
talking
are we
about
getting
on
back?
Thursday.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I missed that, sorry.
But on that note, right, baseball field parking, we were talking about
Yes,
last
sir.
week, hey, where the
You've
big
got your-
top is, if we
Yep.
can get across that creek there, you know, it all,
We're working
it
on
all,
it.
it all plays together.
Great.
So combine schemes 1, 2, 3, and 4. and,
Sounds like it. Sounds like we got a multi-tool. Fair enough.
Legos.
Well, you could, I mean, if anything, this all kind of culminates in how we start to think. We try to throw everything out there so we can figure out what the best parts of each one and bring back to the table. The challenge, and I go back to, the cafeteria has been fundamentally the biggest challenge because
Yeah.
it has to stay
Interesting.
open, functioning. It's hard to deal with that. And so I think with this, where we're headed, I think we can put some layouts together around this option, come back to you guys next month, next working session, and give you some like, oh, here's a layout, here's what this looks like. And then we can say, okay, we're gonna go ahead, we pick one of those, we apply for it, knowing this, the public, everybody should know. Even until we apply, it's not 100% set in stone. Nobody's breaking ground, but
Right.
we're just trying to get everything in that envelope that we need so that we don't apply for too little or too much. Because when it comes time and the division says, yay, hey, we want to help support this in a partnership agreement, no matter what that number is, that's the thing we're asking for the public to buy in on. Hey, if we get partnership, great. We're asking for the public to say yes to this. We think we have a good plan. We can tweak that plan all the way until we submit in construction documentation, which is quite farther out, but we just want to get it right first. I don't want to paint a picture of something way too small or it doesn't work. I do think we're heading in a direction that can work, and it gives us that growth potential. And it's also unifying where we're headed. So you're getting the view of how everything is made in the kitchen. It's like a little bit of all of this. So yeah.
But also, if you're pushing that addition forward, then that connection that Molly's
That's right.
wanting,
Yep.
that happens, but it's a smaller footprint, it's all types of buildings.
That's right.
And with the idea of, hey, we're building what we need, essentially to
Exactly.
use it, the phase one, and come back at some point later and do with the
Right.
wants,
Yep.
right? The idea of that agri building, squaring it up, I think that would actually be a very attractive, space and appeal, the visuals of it. I think everything about that is really appealing for, hey, that's the future expansion.
Is that something that, like, obviously you look at that, so if you decided, okay, we were gonna come off of that building, does that look like a classroom getting pulled out and a hallway put in, or is there a construction method that would accommodate, like later on down the road, like, we knock out this footprint and
Yeah.
now we have our hallway to our new wing?
I think I always want to think about it long-term and know where my circulation corridors are, so that when that wing comes on, we're not rebuilding it twice. We're thinking about how we're pushing students. Also say that, we typically put corridors inboard for a reason. There's times that we have them on the outside. In the IBC, the 2018 IBC, we have to have a safe area of refuge. In any of these, we will pick a series of classrooms or some of the bigger spaces that will be like a FEMA rated. FEMA is a proprietary name, but we'll put a safe area of refuge. That's based on your occupant load. So there's going to be safe areas within the building for storms, just like what we're going through in the springtime. And I know we had an event a few weeks ago. But we're going to be thinking about where those corridors are because of those things. How does it make it easy to traverse on the site, active shooter drills, all the things, all the security pieces, from natural disasters to human flaws. We try to think about that. We think about where that new building's gonna grow out to. How do we allow for not having dead end corridors and things like that? So it's part of kind of the equation, for sure.
Anybody else?
I like that. I like the idea, I like that path of going down that way, so.
1, 2, 3, and 4.
All
Put 'em all
together.
together.
A little bit of one, a lot more
Yeah.
of four, a little bit of two, yeah.
Take 4, flip it over,
Yeah.
flip it over, flip it, and then, yeah. But-
So next time, come with a Velcro map,
Absolutely.
and we'll just move things around.
Are you guys not gonna consider it all, putting back there, the whole school on the practice field?
That was in number 3.
That was
Yeah.
One,
the scheme 3.
Three.
Oh,
3.
I think that defeats everything that everybody
I think it
wanted.
eliminates all your problems. Your schools can continue having classes, you don't have to worry about your cafeteria and everything. And then when you get it built, kids move to the new school, tear the old one down.
It's not a whole
You've got a
school.
great big entrance right into the middle of your school.
but it's not the whole school.
That's
Yeah,
just
we
part
got
of a school.
Acme,
You still have the Dunbar, you still have the gym,
You've
you
got
still.
kids driving to ASU on Highway 62 East, taking classes in welding every day. That's more dangerous than any active shooting you'll have, more than likely, is have a kid killed in a car wreck. Because kids in cars are dangerous.
I'm just going by what faculty is saying, and I'm not about to look at that faculty and say, we're not listening. They want a single entrance, and they want it concise. You start going across that road, you still leave Dunbar, you still leave your cab hallway, you still leave that industrial arch, you've got the gym. It
It's a long
really
walk.
spreads us out.
A long haul from
It's a
Dunbar.
long haul.
You're not rebuilding, are you talking about rebuilding an entire new school and not using any of the current buildings? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, golly.
I wish.
I don't think the state will let us do that, number one.
I don't think the community will.
It won't
And the
do that.
community will not.
I won't agree to that.
Probably need 200 million.
Yeah, no.
But if you did that, you've got.
And it don't make any difference what you put up here or anywhere else, if the voters don't buy it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's sunk, you know,
Yep.
so it has to be palatable.
Right now, that looks like my grandmother's piecemeal quilt that you guys are trying to fill the gaps in with triangles or squares.
I'm not sure.
Well,
It's,
If we have $140 million that someone
I
wants
like
to
a good
donate, I'll build a whole new school.
we could call it the Tommy Knight High School.
Or whatever you want, you don't call it after me.
That's lots of money.
It's a lot.
and that's the problem. There was a lot of pushback against just tearing down the library. We say, let's tear it all down and build a $200 million school.
Well,
That's,
I'm not talking about the gymnasium, but the,
well, we're talking the cab hallways, I mean, everything over by Dunbar on the east side of that road, everything that's currently there.
I mean, it's $180 million right there.
I mean, we're talking
I
huge.
think
I
what
mean,
we're
it's that-
trying to do is make it look cohesive.
Right.
We're not, on here, color coding, you show what's new and you show what, yes, it looks like a quilt. But when you start putting the brick and mortar and you make things blend, you're gonna pull up and think, oh, this was how this building was made, with all the new parts. I think that's
think
what
that
our
would be the
goal
goal.
is.
That's, a lot of my goal is to try to find a way to bond all of it together.
Yes.
You know, and not feel like it's all completely different.
So when we come back, probably next month, after graduation. So, yeah, we will have new sitting board members. They'll be as official as, we won't have board officers elected yet, right? Because it's not the regularly scheduled meeting. Am I correct? Am I correct?
Yes,
Yes,
correct.
okay. So, they'll be seated for that May work session if you're available for some time that week after graduation. You'll bring back,
Yep.
what would you be
I'll
bringing
probably bring back 3 layouts within, if we're saying find the hybrid, bring back 3 layouts that start to dive into that.
Start to look
Mhm.
something.
And it'll be more zoomed in, we're still at 2,000 feet, we'll be back into, okay, I see where you're going with this, now that's connecting to this one. So it'll be a little bit more detailed than what we have here, so, yeah.
And to Mr. Knight, if we do this with, hey, where the Agri building is later is a phase 2, when that's done, you basically have a whole new high school, with the exception of those couple of the band hall, Dunbar, and that cab wing. You basically have your new high school at that point, and it's very compact instead of, well, I mean, it's even closer to the gym and the football field.
Well, it encapsulates, I mean, it creates that entrance. I mean,
I feel a huge separation in that backfield. I feel like you're disconnecting from the,
I
it's-
think the only way the going on the practice field works
whole
is
school.
if you close that road
Mhm.
and you're building that building as close as you can to the other one, and you're still 13 feet higher than your other structure. So it just doesn't,
I just think we're defeating our purpose. I think we're fighting hard
and safety,
yeah.
you,
safety,
The
Going in that
teachers
back-
and the students want to feel safe too.
yeah.
When you take buildings apart like that, that just separates that whole notion. A lot of places have T buildings, that you go to some schools, they're called T buildings, that are away from the buildings because they're portable, because the schools can't afford it. So they have a bunch of T buildings everywhere. And those T buildings, people are afraid. Teachers are afraid. When you see that 40, 50, even 100 feet away from the school, the teachers, when you go into those classrooms, they're actually fear.
I feel exposed.
Right, they feel very exposed, that anybody can just walk in any of those doors, open the door, and do whatever they want.
You would have to put a very good fence around that back wooded area, and safety, that whole back creek.
well, I mean, if you built your entrance right out here,
Mm-hmm.
right down, but then now we gotta deal with traffic on this side.
Yes, with that stop that
Mhm.
stop
Both sides and
sign.
on the
I
building
just
over
know
there.
for years, it's hard to, you're coming off 62, which is the main entrance into Mountain Home, and you come down Bomber Boulevard, you really need your front right there. And that's what that when guests come visiting schools, that needs to be your front.
Yeah,
You don't
I
need to
think,
make them
yeah.
look for the front of your school.
I think that brings the front a little closer too.
Mhm.
And I love the jet, we talked about moving the bomber towards that front last meeting, and that to me is like
But I mean, even
wham.
if, you might even have room to put it behind the grandstands. You might be able to put it in that green patch by the concession stands.
I don't know that you'd see it as well.
I'm thinking that
I think
little
it needs to
curve.
be-
How
Could
that
it
from,
just
you
close
think
to the
about
little
during a
Right
football
on
game,
Dunbar.
you're gonna
Right
see
on
it.
Bomber.
I know,
Road.
but I'm
The
thinking
guests,
about.
the guests are gonna
Yeah.
be looking right at it.
In front of Dunbar?
Well, the back, well, it's the
Man.
back side.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Towards Bomber Boulevard.
That little pie right across from Gila's house,
Right.
way down. Down.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yep,
Right there.
right there. I think that would be a beautiful bomber
That's no space.
home.
We'll have to see.
Until somebody doesn't
Yep.
make that curve and,
And whack it.
Power line.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you
Take
have
out a big
often now
insurance
lot of
policy on
concrete.
you have a lot of concrete on it.
The Navy
Yeah.
gets to pick.
But
It draws attention up there.
Sure does.
Yeah, and it should.
And when you're,
It should, yeah.
you know, when
And
you've
you
got
can light it up.
out of town people coming in to ball games and such, you want them to see that, because that's part of your legacy, if you will.
Mhm.
You know, so you want it in a prominent area.
A lot of good work has been done tonight,
Yeah,
and I
it's good.
appreciate
Yeah,
everybody's
right.
input.
I just appreciate everybody participating, you know, it's often hard when nobody wants to talk, and so I really love that everybody in the room could talk openly about,
Yes.
you know, what's your concern, what's your, you know, what's the 5-year, what's the 15-year, what does that look like? So from my perspective, I've got a lot of notes, but it's really good to have everybody's voice heard, so it helps us, we respond better with feedback.
Right.
So it's great.
And I'll comment on that, from a taxpayer standpoint, when you present this, having a long-term plan will go a long way. If you have it laid out, this is the phase, this is current, and this is what we're, you know, looking to fund with a millage, you know, X number of years down, probably, and especially if you can extend it out until the current bond issue is paid off. If you could do that, then that shows, you know, it dovetails into it so that you're trying to reduce the compound millage
Right.
increases, one on top of another on top of another, before each one of us paid off. But you show a long-term plan of this phase, then down the road, X number of years, this, followed by, if there has to be a third one down the road, X number of years down the road. Because the average citizen out here, all they see is taxes upon taxes upon taxes upon taxes. You know, so they have to know what's out in the future.
Hap, did you have something to say?
Yeah, procedural question. When is the next planning session scheduled?
We don't know yet,
Okay.
but it will be published.
Oh, no, not worried about, just concerned, will it occur before May with the new school board members
No.
in place?
The new,
Or-
we believe that it will be after graduation, which is May 16th, because just, there's not much time. So our new board members would be seated.
Got it, appreciate that.
So probably after the 20th.
I'll have to
16,
with Josh.
17,
I would
18.
assume, guys,
After the 19th.
I'm in the same boat.
I would
with
assume,
the-
guys, it would
you know.
be it. After that, I haven't gotten a date.
Thank
You
you.
know, with that in mind, knowing that you'll have new people, I would suggest that on your 3D views,
Yeah,
that you put labels on top of the building, because you don't
Sure.
have a legend to the side.
right.
So if you put labels on the top of what each one of them is,
Right.
because the new people may not be as familiar with it, but
Right.
that makes it real evident for them, I think.
You got it, no problem.
Yeah, I'm just.
Yeah, absolutely.
How
Mr.
many
Josh?
new classrooms are we netting?
30?
30.
30 additional classrooms would be
30, it does, there's approximately 24 classrooms under the big top,
we're taking those
Ish.
out.
so those are out. So we would go ahead and add 30 because we would have a few extra for ninth grade.
So
Which-
we're netting 6.
Yes.
Ish, I need to, Miss Russell and I have counted 4 or 5 times. We've got some classrooms under the big top that are split in half. So we've counted them both differently because one of us counts it as one and one counts it as two. So it's 24, 25 under there now. We're looking to add 30 plus 4 labs, a health science, a physics, a biology, and a chemistry, all of which we have right now. The health science lab is behind a classroom. So that one of those 30 is the ROTC room.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be 29.
And I should mention, Marcia Partney is the incoming school board member, as Tommy Knight is also the incoming school board member. Brad Butler was invited, but he had a prior engagement and wanted to. Brad Butler?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Brad.
Yeah.
And he could not make it tonight, but he will, I'm sure, be here in May.
He'll
as-
watch it, he'll watch the live stream.
Absolutely.
He'll
Yep,
watch
he
it
said he
from
was
wherever
watching it
is.
live stream, so.
Mr. Josh, we're on a timeline, right? It had to be done, submitted by October.
Yep.
Backing that up, when do we need to have this decided for you to finish doing your work?
I would feel most comfortable by the end of June. That gives me a little bit of July and August to clean things up. But we operate fairly quickly. I want to give this the right amount of time. I'm totally comfortable for May and June to continue to move the pieces of the puzzle around a little bit, but I will say, once we get into July, I'll start to say, all right, we need to kind of settle this so that we can spend the time detailing it the way we need to. It will also depend on if you feel like we want to go into any more visualization more than just plans. If you feel like we need to take it more 3D, if we want to do a rendering, we've got a little bit of room in that, but those just take time. So I would say let's kind of gravitate towards the July 1st, like, all right, we kind of got it solved, let's stick to that, and I'll feel pretty good about it. I'll have plenty of time to get what we need for October. I think it actually gets submitted the very 1st of November, but we have a working session with the division so that we'll pre-review with them, let them know it's coming, run the layout, talk to them about why we're planning it this way, and give them that roadmap, to your point, why the district is trying to do that. It helps us later on when they come back around in May next year to say approval or not. They're very familiar with our campus, as you know.
Sure.
So.
I'm not saying we want to do it. If you want us to meet sooner or whatever, I would say, I mean, I can certainly meet sooner. It's something we can consider if a month between meetings is actually drawing this out and you'd rather, hey, let's
It's
get
working
some
great
decisions
right
to.
now, just because of bandwidth and, everybody's schedule between trying not to interrupt you
Sure,
guys.
sure.
But as we get closer, we might actually turn that up a little bit.
Okay.
We'll have some more freedom in the summer months. Great. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Josh.
Motion.
Make a motion.
Oh.
Thoughts, are y'all primarily looking at prefabricated, concrete, masonry, metal siding, quarry?
No, I don't think we are on prefab. I think it's more pour in place concrete, structural steel, type of construction. I'm not saying you couldn't have metal panel though, things like that. They've already got precedent for some of that, but I don't really want to push them into a prefab in anything too much.
Well, to pour the lightweight concrete panels,
Mhm.
just put up and glue it,
Right.
glue it
Tilt
in
up,
place.
right.
Those go up really quickly.
They do, but I don't know if they're the best,
They come through.
long term.
And that has to also be approved by the state.
No,
Correct.
Yeah.
I know, that's why I was just
Yeah.
asking what you're.
It's a great idea.
What you're thinking about, I mean,
Like-
hey, we use them in the Navy, I mean, they're building buildings, I mean,
Yeah.
big time buildings.
Yep.
And they're expected to last for a minimum of 30 years,
Right.
Expected.
so,
We used them in Alaska when I worked up there, those tilt up panels, and they're great. And they're a lot more sturdy. We were doing warehouses with them. And that was one time,
and that was with what time?
tilt up where you pour the concrete.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then we gravelled put river gravel on top of it, and let it dry, sand it up. Seal the joint.
Yeah. You know, and
Motion.
They go up quick, you don't need to
Make a motion to
Keep
adjourn.
going, I mean, they're
Second.
already, you know, you got 90% of them are already bored when they come on site, so.
We're gonna adjourn, but you can keep talking all night. I'm just gonna shut this down.
I'm just looking.
Well, not all